Right now, we have a special section of the day, which is our panel discussion. And they'll be talking about expanded horizons of coaching. Our moderator for the day will be Adibah Saleh, also fondly known as Didi. She's a senior associate of Teen Coach International. Joining her as our two speakers for the day will be Hasannudin Saidin from Social Enterprise Academy. He'll be talking about startup coaching. And talking about virtual coaching will be Sharifah Raudhah, Leadership Executive Coach from Face to Face. Without further ado, can we please put our hands together for our panel for the day.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a really good afternoon and had a good walkabout. I'm Didi. I've been a coach since 2009. I've been working with Teen Coach since about 5-6 years ago. So it is my pleasure to have these two with me on stage. This is a very interesting selfie here. The intention today is to have an enjoyable, shall we? An open discussion. We can agree to disagree, and I think what's important is the ability to take what's good and what's relevant. Right? Agree so far? Okay. Maybe we'll make this shorter because maybe nobody will ask questions. All right. One of the key things about learning is the sharing part. So, from Social Enterprise Academy, we have Hasannudin Saidin. We call you Hassan, right? From Face to Face Technology, we have one Sharifah Raudhah. And the title for today's discussion is Expanded Horizons of Coaching. Now, as a coach, I'm going to ask you to ask yourself that question. What would that look like if you look at this title? What is expanded horizons of coaching for you? So that's a good start, I believe, in our discussion. So maybe we'll have Hassan talk about his coaching for startups and exactly what you do. Maybe you can introduce yourself first. Are we too close?
Never close enough. Social Enterprise Academy, as you can tell, is an academy for social entrepreneurs. And social entrepreneurship is basically you still make profit, but you do it with a social mission as opposed to an NGO foundation who relies on donations and whatnot. So it's a profitable company. So in Social Enterprise Academy, we do trainings and coachings of social entrepreneurs. But having said that, I've also been coaching, and it's interesting to be given another side of the spectrum. Dr. Michelle just talked about towards one end of the spectrum, which are C-suites, and then the middle managers and managers, and the lower level supervisors. But that's one way of seeing the spectrum. The other way of seeing the spectrum is how soon, how fast, how long you have been in the business. So a startup business, a startup company, a startup enterprise, be it social enterprise or the traditional companies making profit as in the traditional way, is this end of the spectrum of being early versus the C-suite people are, they're strategic, they are more experienced. So what will be interesting is for you to look at the distinction of what Michelle said earlier versus what I'm going to be describing about the issues and how coaching is also applicable to startup environment. And we're talking about people, and we would like to call them startup entrepreneurs, I guess. So for coaches, expanded horizons may mean that you have done startup coaching. This is some of the what's and how's. If you've been doing startup coaching, the invitation from us three is for you to also share what you have found versus what I share, any disagreements or comments and any additional aspects of startup coaching that you know that I did not raise, we invite you to do that. For those of us who are not coaches immediately, what you can learn from it is also, hey, you've observed other startup entrepreneurs. You might have nephews or cousins who are also, early stage businessmen. You might be interested in finding out whether startup coaching or coaching is applicable to these friends and family members too.
So as a coach for working with startups, what you do is you help them visualize the end in mind, exactly the kind of companies they want to be running.
Yeah, we're full of jargon, and in mind, some of us startup entrepreneurs haven't even heard COVID. So I usually wrap it up in just simple terms. What do you want to do? What I enjoy about working with startups is, without jargon, they just love what they do. Number one, they have energy. Number two, they have ideas. They may not even use the word vision. What is that? So I love working with them for the ideas, for the energy that they bring, and the solid will, the willingness to try and do and work hard. Yeah? So simply love working with them. However, we want to reinforce, enhance all these positivities about energy and ideas and whatnot. At the same time, you as a moderator, the coach is also a moderator and a realist for the guy with crazy ideas. So where do we balance this out? So this is one of the aspects of startup coaching. Bring them to ground versus the great ideas that they want to have. What can you do tomorrow? Just like Michelle said, it is applicable here too. They may not have a 5-year vision. They may not think in terms of stages of the Intel type of structure, but they're smart. They want, the energy and the willingness is high. So how do we moderate and manage and increase the chances of success?
Maybe you can also describe the process that you take with each startup.
The process is very similar to any other coaching. However, the setting is different. I might want to describe certain settings which makes them distinct and different from C-suites, for example. Let me begin with the emotional state. And in all coachings, be it effective executive coaching or even startup coaching, one of the things to manage is the emotions. And the emotions at a startup level can be very turbulent because there are so many uncertainties, there are many trying, there are many failures, there are many tears and blood and sweat. So managing emotions in that turbulent, uncertain environment at a startup level is unique, different from the C-suite type. The other issue is the kind of clarity that we assist them to get to. I'll give you some examples, but I would list their emotional management, number 2, their clarity, and number 3, in a startup environment, about them getting to do the small wins first, getting the low-hanging fruits first. This is very unique to startup environment, but if I may also invite you to think, if you can't think of a startup environment, try to apply my example also. If within some of you come from government, some of you come from academia, put it in terms of if you want to try a new venture too. So you might not start up a startup company, but you might be starting a new venture. See if this is applicable to you too. So here goes this example of, he lives nearby from my house. He's 29 years old, let's call him Adam. Adam and the mother is providing money. Yeah? The mother happened to have inherited some property from the father, the deceased father. So he said, Adam, why don't you start a bicycle business? Because your dad is good at servicing bicycle, and you are great at adventure rides, scuba diving, trekking, riding here and there. So the 29-year-old leads the company. The dad is like an employee also, servicing and selling. And the kind of things that he wants to do can be big. For example, he sells basic trading of bicycles. He wants to go into bicycle experiences of people riding. So he says, oh, I started. I've got some of my friends to come on the weekend because we live near FRIM, Forest Research Institute of Malaysia. He takes his friends for rides, so he gets some money. He wants to go big, but he doesn't know how. And by the time the coach asks questions, what is it that you want to feel? My bicycle rides are just on the weekends. How do you feel the weekdays? I think I must have tourists. Why don't you do something about that? But tourists, coach, they are big built, the Americans and whatnot. I don't have 29-inch bicycles. I have only 26-inch bicycles. So the net of it is, he was waiting after 4 or 5 months of doing it for the perfect state of, I can't afford 29-inch bicycles yet, so I won't start going to the tourist markets. How do you know? Have you started? Boss. Yeah, why don't I start? But by simple questioning and whatnot, we are seeing this syndrome of entrepreneurs. They dream big, they have big ideas, but they're waiting for the big bang before they start. Whereas in the entrepreneurship world, it's not about doing it, it's about starting it. And how do you know, Adam, that if you do 27-inch wheel bicycles, you will fail? I don't know. What are you going to do? Yes, I'm going to advertise and see the feedback and see what I can learn from that. Shall I also put in meals and showers and whatnot? Adam, what are you good at? I'm good at this. So then he realized with whatever resources and examples and skills that he has, start there. Right. So entrepreneurship is about trying, but start first. Yeah? So that's one example. Yeah? That's a simple example. I have a couple of other examples which are even more complex, but the net of it is, rather than going for the big, start small first and you'll know, you'll learn along the way. That's one.
So it sounds like, I'm paraphrasing by the way, is that the energy that you have to manage with the startup companies, with the people running behind the startup companies, they have a different kind of energy. There is a willingness to try and the creativity that they have. So it's grounding them at the same time, and it sounds like the coaching process that you do, the process that you have is still meeting with them face to face. All right, now maybe now we have Puan Sharifah who can talk about how it's like coaching virtually. Maybe you can talk about that?
Okay. Thank you very, very much.
By the way, are you a hologram here?
I'm here. Thank you. What the question again is, sorry? Or maybe I can just introduce myself first. I'm an executive coach. Executive here is not like the definition by Dr. Michelle Ghani yet. It's basically my niche market is the executive as in the definition in Malaysia. People who has worked for about 5 years onwards, so we start working with them to prepare them for leadership position, to prepare them as they are promoted when the opportunity comes, right up to middle management and to the CEOs. And virtual coaching here, as I understand it, is just a remote way of doing coaching. It's an alternative of face-to-face coaching. I don't do virtual coaching 100%. It's a blended approach. It's an integrated approach that I've been adopting for about, in the last, if I would say, 5 or 6 years ago, in tandem with the development of the technology. We used to use a lot of Skype before, and it wasn't as easy, one thing, for us coaches. And when Zoom came along, I started experimenting with it, and I find that it's a very, very good platform, at least for me, who's actually really an analytical mind of me. Is I always like to self-feedback, so I would be able to read back the record, see back the record, because Zoom allows us to do that. So for me, I mean, contextually, at least in this room, virtual coaching is simply the delivery mechanism for us to offer our coaching services. It's in the form of remote and using technology such as Skype and Zoom. And I'm still looking out for a better platform if there's any. And I'm starting to actually develop my own platform, including whatever things that I need to put, so that the conversation with my clients can stay continuous, like any referral, any handouts, any accountability technique can still be fed on through this platform, rather than just through email. So I find it a very integrative process.
Being Asians, where we like to have our coaching sessions over teh tarik, hopefully within that 1 hour, what are your challenges with doing it virtually?
Oh, okay, it doesn't come naturally for me. I've been exposed to virtual coaching, I think via 3 dimensions. The first dimension is when I was trained myself in the coaching school. I had my coaching accreditation in Australia. And yes, we went for a trip, the trip of live coaching session that took 10 days or more. But then it didn't stop there, and that's where I started to get myself comfortable with virtual coaching with my supervisor. So that's the first, a trip for me to familiarize myself and to make myself comfortable. Of course, in the beginning, I didn't quite believe it, because I'm a believer in energy. It's sort of like being virtually coached cuts off the communication channel. I can see, but the energy, the when to pause, when to talk, when to cut off, that was not available. To me in the beginning. But as I mature in that arena, in that world, I'm now a believer that energy can what? Can transfer. It's not transfer, it's the word, it's like transcend, yes. Energy can actually commute via online. It can, and it can only happen when you've actually done it a few times. And I've done it a few times, and my God, and this is where the skill of coaching comes into play. It's the listening, it's the questioning, it's the pausing. All that becomes sharper on a virtual world. And I'm able to break the myth. We are able to break the myth, me and my client, when we see result. Yeah, and I'm a big student of performance as well. We can only talk and talk and talk, but where's the result? And I can credit the virtual coaching that we did has some kind of positive effect on the actual result that we actually visioned before. So that was the first dimension, being coached in that arena. The second dimension is then I coach other people in that virtual world. So that's 2 dimensions. One is I'm being coached, so that's one unique experience. The other one is I'm coaching. And the third experience is the peer coaching. So there's 3 different experiences I was able to actually experience before I say, hey, this is it. And it sort of tally and align with, and I'm borrowing Dr. Michelle's phrase of my impossible future. Deep in my heart, and I didn't know, I dismiss it many times, but deep in my heart, I've always wanted to offer my coaching services worldwide. That's an impossible future that I have. And once I'm exposed to this, I quickly jump on it, and I was able, through connections, get clients from all over the world. And right now, I'm coaching like 7 or 8, clients from 7 or 8 countries. One is in Kyrgyzstan, which is 6 hours before us, timing, in India, in Indonesia, in Cairo. In fact, tomorrow I'm flying off to Cairo just to see them for the first time face to face. So it's the other way around, and it's very, very possible in the new world that we are living today to start off your coaching relationship online, and we start missing one another to that extent, and finally are going to meet the person, the client, face to face, and then we don't see each other as client anymore. We see each other as real partner. So that's so that's the kind of experience that is available today, and I see technology as a real enabler for our coaching career.
What would be your, other than the time zones, what would be your other challenges with coaching virtually?
Since it's an impossible future, I don't see it as a challenge actually. It's definitely time difference, and sometimes I have to coach many times actually. I have to coach at 2 o'clock in the morning. But it's really so interesting that both of us, me and the client, understand that, and that in effect become the glue to our relationship. I remember at one time my client was saying, I bet you are in your pajama at this time, Sharifah, because it's 2 a.m. in Kuala Lumpur, and it's like evening in Cairo. And I said, yes, how do you know? So this simple thing actually then become something that binds us. I don't actually see that as a challenge, because in the first place, I've already see this as something that I want to do. So time difference is time difference.
So you've embraced the entire virtual coaching in every way, and made every potentially an obstacle. Some may look at it, but it's an opportunity for you to actually learn and grow from it and be able to help someone across different countries.
Yeah.
Right. Hassan, you want to say something?
I wanted to add to that because some of my coaching is virtual also. So remember Sharifah said the challenge of projecting energy? Well, in a physical room, you pay attention to, okay, of course it's first, you want to coach out of compassion and whatnot. So the being matters. But the doing and the physical appearance, as a performer, you are dressed for the occasion. These things are taken for granted. Your eye contact must be a certain way. Your body language speaks, and the client's body language speaks. So the challenge of a 15-inch screen or 12-inch screen, or an iPad mini that the person might be holding could be, while they want to do video, I am conscious of the limitations of them seeing me. I'm also conscious that when I am coaching someone and I am seeing him in a conference room and he's looking up, he's actually having a video conferencing system in his office that is projected onto the screen. So being conscious of that matters, because the same level of physical proximity that you have, you want to be a certain closeness. If the person is in a conference room and is on the screen, your distance to the camera makes you larger than life. But if it's on a MacBook or a PC, your size is 13 inch. And people can see things like whether you are slouching, the reference to the height of your chair, where you are, whether you are actively lunging forward in the body language of connecting and listening, or if your hand is on the keyboard, they can see your eye movement, paying attention. So the same level of compassion projects to a certain constricted way of doing things, but because you know the constrictions, actually it's better. The parameters are less, so you're working with less parameters to still project energy, compassion, understanding, body language. And it is also true that I too can observe the body language of the person if the video is on. So that challenge of energy and connectedness, somehow lots of practice, we have had it already.
I guess if it's face-to-face and a one-on-one session, you can feel the energy more. And the acts of, like you say, multitasking while you're supposedly in a session with your coach, it's a little bit more enhanced. You can, but with a computer, you can also do the same thing and notice that you're actually multitasking while you're having a session, which you're not supposed to. Okay, no one should multitask. Okay, so.
That's really very interesting that you brought up the notion of multitasking. So you're not focused in the session compared to a live session where you can't run away from doing other things. So what I do normally, and I'm just copying from the people who my coach supervisor who did it perfectly. I just observe what she did, and I like what she did. And I just use that, and in the beginning, she always has an agenda. She runs through it with us, and she sets up a guidelines of sort. This is what we need to do, this is what is not accepted, so how do you find it, and any other guidelines or any other rules that you want to bring into the room. So we have an agreement in the beginning before we actually go in properly into the session, into the coaching session. And being adults and having that agreement, I find that we don't have problem into multitasking. If we need to do some other things, we would already said it in the beginning, at minute whatever, I just need to pick up this call and then I'll go back into it. So as long as there is a clear agenda, a clear goal to this session, and a guideline and rules, it should be able to handle this misconception of multitasking.
So the process sounds very similar whether you do it face-to-face or virtually, because you want to clarify up front what is it that we'll be going through, how is the guidelines. So it pretty much sounds like whether you do it online or face-to-face, it is the same.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't say it's the same. I think it's a bit stretch, but for me at this stage, it's a good blending approach. And more than that, in my specific case, the benefit is that I'm able to reach population that before are not able to reach out to coaching service. For example, in Kyrgyzstan, they're not, coaching, they're not familiar with this service. So the benefit for both of us is that I'm able to go to the area where I cannot think that I'll be able to do that if there's no enabler, if there's no technology enabler. And for them, they'll benefit because they still get a good coaching session, they are exposed to it through technology. So it's a win-win. But if But if they were to also be exposed to face-to-face or live coaching session, that will be good as well. Yeah, so there's no, like this is better than the other. For now, is we make best use of technology to reach out to as many people as possible. And mind you, this is not just executive coaching. In my case, I do use this for teachers coaching in education. So we are able to reach out to teachers in rural areas as long as they have a handphone and a good amount of internet. That's all. So we can use WhatsApp call, WhatsApp video, up to them. Yeah.
So distance is not a barrier. Technology is
No
an
more.
enabler.
Yeah, no more. Coaching can go right to the far end corner of the world if they want to.
All right. So at this point, I think we've gone past half an hour. Do you guys have any questions for the panelists? Yes, Mohan. The mic is there.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mohan. I would just like to find out the commercial part of it. How does the billing, how does the cost that is being charged for this kind of virtual coaching? Is it, you don't need to give it an exact figure, is it 20% more, 30% more than what we normally charge on a face-to-face basis? Or is it really something that is pretty much one-to-one negotiable basis? Hope you can clarify on that.
Okay, so you want me to compare with a live coaching? For me, there's no difference. In fact, it's a much better option for me because I can use my time in a more effective manner. If for a live coaching, I could only do maximum 3 a day if I want to, and I have to battle traffic, and sometimes for executives I have to wait. But for online coaching or virtual coaching, relatively we've locked in the time, and they normally go in spot on time. So from there on, the benefit, it's like really, it's a win-win situation, and I don't have to worry about the cost of commuting, and I'm able to give a more competitive rate for this online coaching. Yeah.
Win-win.
Yeah, so that's actually, there is no difference. Yeah. I mean, that's my own way of doing things. Yeah. And I normally follow because I work in different cultures, in different countries. I normally do a research first on the rate for that country. Yeah, because my ultimate aim is to make sure that they get this service, they get used to it, they are exposed to it at no cost virtually for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohan.
Of course, Mohan, there's that monthly fee for that video conferencing software. But these are the days of no longer you needing to buy an expensive Cisco system and whatnot. Just a laptop will work. There's a monthly fee which is so affordable. I've forgotten what I'm charging to my card on it. So it's very affordable. And because of great Wi-Fi nowadays, it doesn't lag anymore. And of course, you can even share the screen that you're on with a tablet. I can draw diagrams on my tablet and the person can see because somehow there's a technology of connection and whatnot. Some wizardry stuff which is nerdy and fun, but it's not for the fun, it's for the effectiveness of communication. But cost-wise, I've forgotten what I get charged on it monthly. So it's not hundreds of thousands, it's not tens of thousands, it's probably less than 20 ringgit a month.
Yeah, so the cost of using such service versus if you're actually going and traveling to see a client, that's something you need to weigh and see. It sounds like virtually in terms of the costing and the pricing, it works out for the virtual coaching to happen. It sounds like it. right? Any other questions that you would like to ask? Okay, so what I'm hearing will be and unless you want to jump in, yes.
Another point on startup coaching, other than making them real and go small first and learn along the way, you see, we don't even use jargon like lean startup and whatnot. If they happen to have gone for such training on such fancy models as design thinking, business model canvas, we are not their trainers anyway. They will say, and then what we do is coach them. Are you using what you learn? But even without jargon, you can, in the first instance of what I described, lead them to know that you just go step by step and you win and you learn along the way. Behind the scenes, you can tell them there's such a book called Lean Startup, but it's not really needed. But the second challenge that is also applicable to all coaching, but in the setting of a startup, is this the coach's role in getting clarity, getting the coach's own clarity. In their struggle and their running for starting up a business, they forget themselves. Okay? For example, I have let's call her Sarah, not you, Sarah. Sarah works with a company already. It's a large oil and gas company. Been working in a few companies, and this job is the last 5 years. She's pretty bored in her job, but she's also interested in children's education. From coaching her, we know that her slant and her impossible dream, of course she doesn't use the phrase impossible dream, her idea is to provide preschool children's education different from what she sees because she has her own kids. She's so passionate about it that she says, my major focus, what I really want to be is a life-changing entrepreneur. So she's so clear about that. And although I do not use Pepe's method, and Pepe might call this life philosophy, I coach her into her adopting her own equivalent of life philosophy, which is 10 words instead of 25 words. She knows that in spirit she's a trailblazer. She wants to stupendously, she used her own big words of stupendously changing the world. And then, while she's bored and she wanted to do the children's education, she took one big step in resigning from work, which was a big step. Gone is the security of the monthly salaries. The husband says he will support her. But while she has done that, she forgot that she is actually living out that life philosophy. She goes on the next few weeks and months, still uncertain. Did I take the right decision? Did I take the right decision? Am I sure I want to do this? So remember, while you have a certain life philosophy, but you're not clear that you are actually living it out, then whatever she was doing was half-hearted, no longer that high-spirited. So with questioning and reflecting back and reminding back the 10 words versus what she said 3 months ago, then she became sure and clear, that's what I really want. But without that coaching, she might have gone on another 3 months plodding along, pursuing those entrepreneurial efforts half-heartedly. And you know it's magic. Once she realizes it again, she's back on speed. There are so many simple things that they already know, but they forget. The coach's role is to reflect them back on what they have said earlier. So in entrepreneurship days, startup days, these are the kind of struggles that they have. The uncertainty, the self-doubt, that's another part. So how do we deal with their emotions? How do we make clear what they really want? And how do we lead them or coach them that they take small steps along the way before they go to large business stage?
So going back to basics actually, and it really does sound that every coachee that we meet, whether they're in a corporate world or in a startup, we are all actually the same. We are emotional. There are things that we need to make a decision on and we don't know how, we don't have the clarity. And whether it's virtually or face-to-face, it shouldn't stop us from being able to help our coaching, our client. Because it goes back to that intention. Our intention of I think for us being coaches is being able to reach out and help each person that come our way, that seek our help. And the energy, I am excited to try, or virtually, to feel what we can feel face to face, to feel it virtually. So that's very interesting. I think we all should try it and have, you can Skype me or Zoom call me and we'll have a coaching sessions or coaching conversations.
Hey, one of the things I pay attention to, I have my camera, so what's behind me? In the early days of coaching, I didn't care what was behind me until someone came to my room. Hassan, the last session, you had that on the screen. Why don't you shift your camera to this angle? It makes you more interesting. It shows character of your office space. And I realized there was a picture of a baby there. So this picture should not be on the wall. So what conducive environment are you providing within that constraint, within that 13-inch screen and within the camera angle? I pay attention to all those things now.
It's really interesting. We are coming to a close, and I just want to take this up. And in one of my coaching sessions virtually, the client actually said, "What's there behind you? The picture." And I use that. Everything that comes from the client, I use it as a resource. So I ask a coaching question: what attracts you about the picture? And then what comes to your mind? And we started off and it was a really very, very interesting. It was about the third or the fourth session. And I can see that the client thinks that he doesn't need any more coaching at that time. And we all know this. Well, where is this going? Yeah, I've got this outcome. I'm not interested in creating a new outcome. So we can see that it's going to fall off. But then with that, if we are able to use everything as a resource, I say, it's interesting that you point that out. What attracts you to the picture? And he said, oh wow, whatever. I was like, it reminds me of something else. And we actually continued the conversation based on that. So it comes from the fact that you can never have a perfect, conducive environment, be it live session or online session. We've just got to make use of what's coming from the client. And in the end, at the end of the session, the client said, "Thank you very much, Sharifah." He was very, very truthful to me that actually, it was going nowhere and I'm about to end this relationship, and it ended, in a different way. So that's how I would like to add on to what Hassan said. Thank you very much.
Coaches adapt and are flexible and use whatever that works. All right, so
one last thing on startup coaching, just to add data to why startup coaching works. In a certain Malaysian government program of getting startups to be coached in a program, a 3-month program, the target given to the coach was get all these startup companies to get their sales up by 30% within 3 months of coaching. My startup coach colleague achieved it, so it works.
Well done. Okay, so I would like to thank Sharifah and Hassan for being here with us to end this up to this part of the day of this coaching conference. Thank you very much. Kathy.